Hi, thanks for joining us today to learn a little bit more about how to earn a CDA credential. So what is the Child Development Associate credential? It's commonly known as the CDA, and this is a national credential that is awarded to those who have demonstrated the required competency through experience and education working with children ages birth to 5. And it's important to note here that the CDA credential is awarded by an organization based out of Washington, D.C. that is called the Council for Professional Recognition. So they are the only entity nationally that awards the credential. So I know sometimes there's some confusion if you're taking college classes, if you're taking training hours, where that certification is really coming from, but it is just from the National Council. So the CDA, their tagline is that it's the best first step, and that's for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of usefulness to this credential and reasons that you would want to start with this on your educational journey. So first of all, the CDA is very useful because it brings unity to the early childhood field. It's not just for a certain type of teacher. It's whether you're in a center-based preschool or infant toddler setting, in family child care, and even for home visitors that are not in a classroom setting. It's recognized in a variety of different areas, but it's primarily required for programs such as Head Start, statewide voluntary preschool, within the PPS, the Quality Preschool Program Standards, Shared Visions programs, and within NAEYC and NAFCC accreditation. It's the only nationally recognized credential for early childhood, and since it is a national credential, you can take it state to state in different programs, and it's always recognized the same. So it's very portable, gives you a lot of options for future jobs. It's also the only credit-bearing national credential that articulates to an associate degree. So what that means is, we'll talk about this a little bit, how to earn the CDA. You can use training hours or college credit to earn the credential. And so even if you are using training hours to get that done the first time, you can then take it to one of Iowa's community colleges, and sometimes they'll give you some college credits for that, waive a few classes. It does vary college to college, so you can certainly contact us for more information on what that looks like for your local college, but there are a lot of options, so certainly look into that if you're looking to go forward toward an associate degree once you've earned a CDA. It's also a multi-language credentialing system, so you can take the test in different languages, you can be assessed in whatever your native language is, so it's very versatile there and very inclusive. And it's also very strong because it measures competency in a variety of ways. So it's not just you took a class, you passed a test. It really looks at all of your knowledge and competency, both within the education, the experience that you have, and observation of how you're actually interacting with children. So it really takes everything into account to get a full picture of your competency in working with children. So the first thing to do when you're looking at getting your CDA credential is to select which setting you'll be applying for. So this is the graphic from the council's website. There's 3 main types of credentials. Whether you're in a center-based program, and that would include a preschool, a child care center, Head Start classrooms, if you're in a school district preschool or pre-K program, and then there's family child care programs and home visitors. And the home visitor program is a little bit different, so we're not going to talk about that process today. But that is a different system if you're not working in an actual classroom. And then within the center-based setting, there's either an infant toddler specialization if you're working with children primarily birth up to age 36 months, and a preschool setting working primarily with ages 3 to 5. Are there any questions on settings? Yes?
Yes, I was wondering if I can get multiple settings for the CDA.
You will have to select just one primary setting when you apply for your CDA credential. So if you're working with children ages birth to 5, that full range, you'll kind of want to look at which age group you're primarily working with. And kind of looking down the road, are you going to stay in preschool? Are you thinking you want to shift more to infant toddler? And just select one. There used to be an option to get a second setting CDA as an add-on to have multiple specializations, but now you will have to just choose one, and if you wanted to get a second CDA, that would be an option, but you have to do the full process for that. So you want to make sure when you select the setting that that is the age group that you're actually working with, and that's where most of your training and education has been focused on, because you will be assessed in the classroom working with that age group.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, so let's take a look at some resources from the council. So if you look at the PowerPoint slide here, this kind of shows the first step is that you'll go to the council's website to order what's called a competency standards book. People who have done the CDA in the past, it used to be called an application packet. This replaces that. This book contains all of the application materials that you'll need to apply for your CDA and outlines the guidelines of what you'll need to put together in that process. So again, here the setting comes into play. So you want to make sure you have the right book for the setting that you've chosen. So the infant toddler book is yellow. If you're in infant toddler specialization, you want to make sure that this is the book you get. The family child care one is blue. The preschool edition is green. And these go through and walk through all the guidelines to apply. And something to note too when you get the book is in this front cover, there's a candidate checklist that goes through each step, and you can check off as you go. And it also lists the corresponding page number. So one of these boxes says, I prepared my professional portfolio, and then it says those guidelines are on pages 10 to 17. So you can check that you're getting everything done, and then look in the book and look at those actual guidelines to make sure they match. And then the last book that's available from the council is the Essentials for Working with Young Children textbook. This is not required. This is an optional resource that you can purchase. It's $49, and it contains all of the information that you would generally be getting within your training that goes along with the CDA. And the exam material is pulled straight from this book. So it's a good resource to have on hand, especially if you're a program director and you want to have it as a resource if you have multiple staff working towards the CDA. But it's not required. But just know that it is there if you're wondering how to prepare for the exam and what kind of material will be on that. The Essentials book is a really good option for that. So now we'll go ahead and talk about the main components that are required in earning this national credential. So there's a few main areas. The first is training and education, and we'll break down each of these a little bit more as we move through the presentation. But 120 hours of early childhood training or education, 480 hours of work experience. You'll put together a professional portfolio, and like I said, those guidelines are all in the competency standards book. It'll tell you exactly what to put together in what order. There's some family questionnaires, and then you'll take a CDA exam and complete a verification visit. And it does depend on the individual, but we say the process typically takes about a year to get all of those components ready and completed to apply for the credential. So let's start by looking at the training and education options. In Iowa, we have designated CDA courses. These are some classes that are offered at most of our community colleges in the state that align with the CDA content. They aren't the only classes that count for CDA. Anything that's early childhood would count, but these have been identified as the core classes. So it would be 4 classes or 12 credits for the core. So the main 3 would be this Intro to Early Childhood class, the Child Health Safety Nutrition class, and the Early Childhood Guidance class. And then for your 4th class, you could select a curriculum class or the Infant Toddler Care and Education class, depending on your specialization. And then there is also this 1-credit CDA standards class that's offered at certain community colleges, and that's kind of just a wrap-up to overview all of the CDA guidelines and requirements so that you're ready to apply for your CDA once you finish those classes. And these are all offered online, so there's lots of options out there for how you want to get that coursework done. And if you contact T.E.A.H, we'd be happy to let you know where you can take those classes and when they're offered. So as far as the training option, for the training, or if you're using the formal education, it has to add up to 120 hours. So if you're taking that set of 4 college classes, we've already tracked which hours count in which content areas, and those would complete all the requirements. If you're using trainings, you need to be careful to make sure that you have at least 10 hours in each of the 8 content areas for the CDA, and those are just different subject areas that are listed in the competency standards book. And then the additional 40 hours after that can be spread out amongst the content areas. Training has to be from an approved training entity. So there's just a list on the slide of a few organizations that would include CCRNR, AEA, ISU Extension, continuing ed classes, anything like that. You just have to make sure that you have a certificate issued from that with the training entity's logo on it and a signature to verify that the training has been completed with the date and the number of hours and everything on there. Conferences don't count or center staff training, but other group settings such as institutes or seminars or symposiums would count. If you have any questions about that, you can certainly contact us for details. So the next component is work experience. You need to have 480 hours of verifiable work experience. It doesn't have to be paid time. It could be volunteer hours as long as it's verified. And it has to be within the past 3 years of when you apply for your CDA. So this is a pretty easy one for most people. You just have your director or your employer type something up on letterhead that says that you've worked that many hours over that time. So the next component is the professional portfolio. And so once you've completed your education, this is the next big step that kind of takes the most time to prepare. There's 3 parts in the portfolio. The first is the resource collection, which contains 10 items, and these are meant to be everyday type of items that you would use in your classroom. So things like a sample lesson plan, a sample menu, pulling together some resources in your community that families could utilize. The second part is the reflective statements of competence. Within the competency standards book, you'll see there are 6 competency goals. And basically you'll be answering questions related to that to help show that you understand the content. And these questions all refer back to the resource collection items. So one question might be, given what you know about health and safety, how would you use this menu that you've created? So it's really helping you apply those items that you've gathered and show that how they would be useful within your practice. And then part 3 is the professional philosophy statement. And this is just where you can write about your thoughts on how you provide care and education to young children. And that's a maximum of 2 pages. And there's some prompts and guidelines within the book as well that explain exactly what they're looking for there. But there's no right or wrong answers. Just want to show that you have some thoughts about caring for young children. So the next part is the family questionnaires. And these will be within the portfolio that you put together. And these are also in the competency standards book. You'll make copies and provide them to your families. And these just have to be completed within 6 months of when you send in your application. So you just have to collect at least half of them. They are available in English or Spanish, so hopefully one of those languages works for your families. And once you collect those, you can review the feedback that you've been given from the families, and you'll complete the family questionnaires summary sheet, which just allows you to go back and reflect on what parents have said and what patterns you see and areas of strength and what kind of feedback they've given of ideas that you could improve upon. So the next step, once you have all of those materials together, is actually applying. When you send your application to the council, all they want is the actual CDA application, and I can show you what that looks like in the competency standards book here. Let me find the page. So here's the application. It has lots of little boxes to write your name and everything, and you'll just fill this out. It's a few pages of verifying that you've completed all those required components, and there's a section for your employer to fill out as well. And you just tear the application out of the book and send that in along with the payment. The fee for the council is $425 to apply. So they just need the application and the fee at the time that you apply. You will save your portfolio and save that for the visit when the actual assessor comes out. And then that will include your transcripts and certificates verifying your training and education, as well as those completed family questionnaires. And it looks like we have a question.
Yes, can I apply online?
There is an option to apply online through the council's website. We currently, that is not an option if you're using a T.E.A.H. scholarship. And I'll explain how our scholarship can help a little bit later. But online application is an option if the scholarship is something that you're not eligible for. We just aren't set up right now to pay through that system, and we would love to help pay for your CDA, so always contact us before you're ready to apply.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. All right, so you'll hold on to those items that we talked about, and then the portfolio and those other documents have to be have been completed within 6 months of when you apply to the council. So once you actually submit your application, you'll receive what the council calls a ready to schedule notice. This will typically come via email, or if you did not provide an email on the application, it'll come in the mail. We highly recommend that you give them your email address so that you can get this in a more timely manner and get that process going. Basically, this notice will give you permission to go ahead and schedule the assessment process. So that was the exam and the verification visit that we talked about. So it'll give you a 6-month deadline for completion. So once your application has been reviewed by the council, from whatever date that is that they send you this notice, you have 6 months to schedule your verification visit and take your exam. And that responsibility falls onto you to get those lined up and taken care of during that time. There'll be information in that notice about how to contact your testing center to set up the exam, along with your candidate ID number, which the exam center will request when you schedule that, and then also information on how to contact your professional development specialist. And we're going to talk about who that person is in a couple slides here. So as far as the exam, like I said, you have that 6-month deadline to take it once your application has been approved. It can now be taken in English or Spanish. There are multiple versions of the exam, so it'll align with the setting that you have chosen. So if you're a family child care setting or in a center-based preschool setting, the exam will include content from ages 0 to 5. For the preschool, it'll be focused on 3 to 5, but it will include that full range. And if you're on the infant toddler specialization, the content will be geared mostly towards 0 to 3. The exam is proctored at a Pearson VUE testing center. There's a list of those testings, a link to the Pearson VUE website from the council's website where you can search by zip code to find your nearest center or contact us at T.E.A.H. We've got a pretty quick list. There's only about 10 in the state, and lots of those are at community colleges. So they should be easy for you to find. And if you don't have a center near you, that's why they give you the 6 months of time to find somewhere if you need to travel to a different location. It's just 65 multiple choice questions. You have an hour and 45 minutes to complete it. And typically people complete in less than an hour, so you don't need that full time. Yes, we have a question?
Yes, I was wondering, when do I get the score, the grade for my exam?
There is no actual grade on the exam. You will take the test at the Pearson VUE Testing Center, and those scores are automatically sent online to the council. And then what happens is, like I talked about before, they're measuring competency in all these different ways. So they weight together your scores from the exam, your scores from the verification visit, the portfolio. Everything is taken into account together. So there's no passing or failing cutoff score on the exam. Because someone might have a lower exam score, but a really good observation score in the classroom, and they would kind of weight those together. So there's no exact grade on the exam. You'll just receive a final credentialing decision that takes everything into account.
Great, thanks.
All right, so the next step is the verification visit. And you can do your exam and your verification visit in either order. However, that scheduling works best for you is fine, as long as it's all within the 6 months. The verification visit is completed by a professional development specialist or a PD specialist, and that's someone that you will select to serve in that role, who's going to complete the assessment process for you. There are instructions in the competency standards book on how to select that person. The council's website has an online directory that you can put in your zip code, and it'll show you who's the closest, and you can request them through that online system. And if you have any trouble finding someone, give us a call at T.E.A.H. and we'd be happy to help get you connected with someone in your area. So again, the verification visit is within that 6-month time period. And there's 3 main steps that go along with the visit. They call it the ROR model: review, observe, reflect. The review is just a review of the portfolio. The PD specialist will go through, make sure you have all those required elements. You've written your competency statements, you have the certificates to verify your training hours or your education, family questionnaires, and all of that. The next component is observe, and we'll talk about that in a couple slides, as well as reflect. And then once they have completed the verification visit, the PD specialist will submit the scores online to the council within 48 hours. And so once your verification visit scores are in and your exam scores have been submitted online, typically within a week you'll receive a credentialing decision, and you'll know if you've been awarded the CDA. So those components within the verification visit, the major one is the observation. This is they use the comprehensive scoring instrument to complete the observation. It typically takes about 2 hours. It's focused on the 13 functional areas, which you'll learn a little bit more about in the competency standards book. And the observation is the only part of the verification that has to occur on site. And the review and the reflection can occur somewhere else if that's a problem for your program. Most programs are able to accommodate a quiet space for the PD specialist to meet with the candidate to get those other pieces completed. And I will show you within this competency standards book, in the back is the actual comprehensive scoring instrument. So when your PD specialist comes to do your visit, you will physically hand them your book, and they will use this tool to score you in the classroom. So something that you can do while you're preparing and getting your portfolio together and everything in advance is take a look at what they're going to be looking for when they come and score you. And what's nice about this tool is it includes notes based on the review as well as the observation. So if there's an area, so this area here is guidance, for example, and maybe in the classroom they observe a lot of really great guidance activities and they make a lot of notes, and you might not have as much in your portfolio on that, and that's okay, but this allows you to use both areas when they're taking into consideration how they're going to score you on that content. So that's nice, and it's a really easy thing that you can prepare for ahead of time. Maybe have someone in your center do a practice observation to get an idea of what they're going to be looking for, so you can be most prepared for that. So the last step in the verification visit is the reflective dialogue. This always occurs last. You can either do the observation or the review of the portfolio first. Those are interchangeable, whatever fits into the schedule. But the last step is the reflective dialogue. It's about 45 to 50 minutes. This is not a part of the verification visit that's scored. You won't pass or fail as long as you have this discussion. And the purpose is really to support your growing skills in professional reflection. Set some goals for future professional development and what you're going to do next. And if you had, this replaces the oral interview that was part of the old CDA process. And it's just really more focused on that professional development planning. So a good discussion to have as you're looking forward. So now the good stuff. How can T.E.A.C.H help? What can we pay for? We have a CDA assessment scholarship, and this is just for the assessment fee. So I mentioned earlier it's $425 to apply for your CDA. So that's where we come in at the end when you're ready to actually apply. You just have to be working at least 20 hours a week in an Iowa regulated program with children ages birth to 5. Your contribution as the recipient would be 15% of that fee, about $65, and then T.E.A.C.H would pay the remaining $360. The commitment is that you're going to commit to stay working in early childhood in Iowa for 6 months after receiving the credential, and then you'll receive a bonus once you actually get the CDA. If you're using training hours or less than 12 college credits, it's $200, or if you're using that core of 12 credits that I mentioned earlier, those 4 community college classes, then it's a $300 bonus. So how this works is basically once you're actually ready to apply, you'll send us your completed CDA application along with that $65 copay. We'll mail it off to the council. You'll complete the assessment, the exam, and the verification visit once they've notified you to do so. And then once you earn your CDA, just send us a copy and we'll send you the bonus. It's very straightforward. And it's a good way to help, and you get some money out of the deal. So CDAs, unfortunately, are not good forever. They do expire. So renewal is another component to look at after you've earned your CDA. So the requirements for renewal are in a few categories as well. So the first is education, either a 3-credit college course, 4.5 continuing education units, and those are sometimes available with trainings for an additional cost, or 45 training hours. You'll also have to provide current first aid certification, proof of recent work experience, just 80 hours in the past year, a letter of recommendation, and that form is provided in the renewal materials, so it's not something someone has to write from scratch, and then proof of membership in an early childhood organization such as NAEYC or NAFCC. So when will you need to do this? Renewal happens every 3 years. So when you get your initial CDA, it will be valid for 3 years, and then you will renew it before it expires after that 3-year deadline. The current fee for renewal is $75 if you renew online and $100 for a paper application. So the renewal scholarship is an option as well. So we can help with if you're going to use that college class to renew. If you're working 30 hours a week, then you would be eligible for that scholarship. It's just for the 3-credit college class. So as the recipient, you'd pay 10% of the tuition and book costs. The center, if you have an employer, would be 20%. Home providers, you would cover that expense as well. And then T.E.A.C.H would pay 70% of the tuition and books for that class and offer a $100 travel or internet stipend. Once those 3 credits are completed and you're eligible to apply for renewal, you would be responsible for the renewal fee. That's $75 if you're applying online, which you can do for renewal. And then once you earn that CDA, send us a copy once again, and you'll get a $100 bonus. And the commitment for this scholarship is 6 months in your current program because they are supporting some of that cost. So those are the main points. We do also have some other scholarships to help. The general T.E.A.C.H scholarships can help you earn those 12 credits toward the CDA, or if you just want to get started on an associate degree or a bachelor's degree, we can help with that as well. So how to get started, I certainly advise you to visit the council's website. It's www.cdacouncil.org. Or call them with questions about the general CDA process. It's always good to walk through their website and just take a look at that to get familiar with those components again. And then, of course, contact T.E.A.C.H at 515-331-8000 or 1-800-469-2392. Shoot us an email, visit our website. There's a lot more information. So now we're going to go ahead and transition to showing you a little bit of how to use the council's website. So let me pull this up on the computer here. So this is their website that it looks like, cdacouncil.org. So from the main page, if you click on CDA credential, you can learn a little bit more about the steps involved. There's also a link here in the middle, CDA PD specialists. That's where you can go to try to find that professional development specialist to complete your visit. And there's a link here to the PDS online directory where you can find them. And lots of other good resources here. Also from the main page, the council bookstore will take you to where you can purchase those competency standards books online. So the council is a great resource since they are the ones that are issuing the CDA. Always go there for the most up-to-date information. So that's what we've got today. Please contact us at T.E.A.C.H. We'd love to help you out on a scholarship, walk you through the CDA process a little bit more, and help you get prepared for that. Thanks.